Chi and Goten strolled through Gamestop, passing by video games and comic memorabilia, toys, and various nerdy hats and shirts. Goten couldn't help but stare at the new video game he had always wanted. He smiled as he gazed upon it, gleaming behind the display case. Chi-Chi, noticing his excitement, made her way to the gaming section, hoping to purchase the game for her son. But as they approached the display case, a red blur rushed past them and snatched up the last copy of the game. It was none other than the Flash, known for his superhuman speed. Chi-Chi's heart sank with disappointment. She knew how much the game meant to her son. She walked over to the crimson-clad speedster and asked if she could buy the game from him. The Flash looked at her and said, "Yeah, I'll give you the game, but you'll owe me a date." Chi-Chi responded, "I'm flattered, sir, but I'm a happily married woman." In a very childlike fashion, the Flash stuck his tongue out at her, said, "No date, no game, later losers." He then sped off in a red blur. Later that night, Chi-Chi shared the unfortunate incident with her friend Bulma. Bulma told her husband, the Saiyan Prince Vegeta, upon hearing of the Flash's disrespect, he immediately called Goku Kakarot.
"Never forget what you are! Where is your Saiyan pride?"
Goku, although reluctant, agreed to confront the offender and flew to the Flash's house. The Flash opened the door to a short, unassuming, funny-haired gentleman in an orange gi, who asked him politely if he could buy the game from him. But the Flash had other motives. He proceeded to make fun of Goku's iconic hair and called him a loser. The Flash was looking for a fight. Goku reminded the Flash that it's never nice to insult people. Suddenly, the Flash tried to punch Goku, but he was one step ahead, blocking the fast-moving punch. Goku, knowing better than to underestimate his opponent, knocked the Flash out with one powerful punch. The Flash, being knocked unconscious, triggered a device Batman implanted in all League members. An alert was sent to the Watchtower, triggering Martian Manhunter to alert all available League members that Barry Allen, known as the Flash, was under attack. Batman was first to arrive on the scene. The tires of the Batmobile screeched and pulled to a dramatic stop. The roof popped off. The Batman sprang out. He launched his attack with a swift and carefully aimed batarang that Goku easily caught. But Batman was quick to follow up with a flying kick. His foot made contact with Goku's stomach, but much to Batman's surprise, Goku appeared unfazed. Without missing a beat, Goku flicked Batman on the forehead, knocking the Caped Crusader unconscious. As he lay on the ground, Wonder Woman emerged from the shadows, ready for battle. The two clashed fiercely, exchanging powerful blows that caused the ground to shake beneath their feet. Goku could feel himself starting to tire, but he knew he had one more trick up his sleeves. He powered up the Super Saiyan 1, a transformation that made him faster and stronger than before. It was enough to give him the edge over Wonder Woman, and with one swift blow, she fell to the ground defeated. Goku knew he couldn't let his guard down. The Martian Manhunter then sent in reinforcements in the form of Shazam and Aquaman. Goku realized the immense power the two possessed when they were combined, causing him to transform to Super Saiyan God. The form enhanced every aspect of Goku's fighting abilities, making him faster, stronger, and nearly unbeatable. Though Aquaman and Shazam put up a good fight, Goku was ultimately victorious, knocking them both out with moderate difficulty. The Martian Manhunter sent out one last desperate plea for Superman to come to their aid. In a flash of red and blue, Superman arrived on the scene. "I'll take it from here," he declared, ready to defend the planet. As Goku gazed upon Superman, he became excited. He had never sensed a power level quite like Superman's. Although he doubted the strange fellow with his underwear over his pants possessed any fighting skill, he knew that his immense strength could be problematic. As Superman and Goku clashed, the air shook and the earth trembled beneath their feet. The battle had begun. As Superman and Goku clashed, the air shook and the earth trembled beneath their feet. The battle had begun. The Kryptonian and Saiyan exchanged titanic blows, which echoed across the city. However, it was not long before the duo realized the catastrophic destruction they could have wrought upon the city. They floated up and away into the dark, silent void of space, where they could fight without causing any damage. Superman quickly gained the upper hand with his immense strength, leaving Goku struggling to keep up with his speed. Goku, in a moment of excitement, took his transformation to Super Saiyan Blue, his hair turning electric sea blue. Superman responded to the transformation saying, I don't know why you attacked my friends, but it's nice to fight without having to hold back. The two fought at an alarming speed, each move exerting an incredible amount of power. Although Superman was a match for Goku in strength and speed, he had no answer for the Saiyan's fighting skill. As the battle raged on, Superman felt pain as he had not felt before. He had experienced injuries as a result of magic and kryptonite, two weaknesses he was accustomed to. He had never been beaten so soundly. Superman sensed his inevitable defeat and made a hasty retreat towards the sun. Goku, believing Superman had destroyed himself out of fear, decided to head back home. He muttered to himself, "These guys really are serious about their video games," not realizing that the Kryptonian had viewed him as a threat to the entire planet. Just as he was about to fly away, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "Not so fast, evildoer." It was Superman, glowing like a Super Saiyan. The battle continued once again. Goku used his Kaioken technique, attempting to increase his power, but it was no use. Superman was just too strong. He landed a crushing blow on Goku, causing him to fall unconscious. As he floated there, believing Superman to be an evil force, he imagined the worst possible scenario. What would happen to his family if Superman finished him off? This sparked something inside of him. His autonomous Ultra Instinct was unleashed once again. The battle continued relentlessly, the sound of fists striking with unimaginable force, obscuring every other sound. Superman, usually invincible, was completely unable to land a punch, but Goku was unstoppable, every bone-crushing strike landing at will. Superman began to tire. This was an entirely new level of exertion for him. He felt his consciousness slipping away from him. He feared what Goku might do to the world if he couldn't stop him. Superman refused to give up. He dug deep, using every last ounce of strength he had left to continue the fight. He gritted his teeth and gathered himself together, preparing for what might come. Goku was charging his finishing move, the Kamehameha. Superman had no defense left in him at this point. He was ready to accept the end when suddenly King Kai intervened telepathically. He explained that everything was just a huge misunderstanding. The Flash had been reckless and offended Goku's wife and child. Goku went to talk with the Flash and was attacked. He went on to explain that Superman just believed that his friends were in danger. At first, Goku was surprised, but then he laughed in relief. "Oh, I guess we didn't need to do this after all," he said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Superman's mouth curved up in a wry smile. "I suppose not," he answered. They both agreed to spar again sometime in the future. However, there was one unfortunate consequence. Goten never got his game. Goku had to break the news to his young child. Goten replied, "It's okay, Dad," masking his disappointment. As he entered his bedroom, he saw a red and blue blur that left his window open. He looked over towards his bed, and to his surprise, he saw the video game he had coveted. Attached to the game was a note: "Apologies for my colleague's behavior, and tell your dad I want my rematch. Signed, Superman." Thanks for watching. For more anime videos, make sure to subscribe. What Ifs, anime songs, and skits every week. Also check out our website, CrawfordFarmsLLC.com. You can support our channel by ordering items from our Amazon affiliate page. Thanks, and see you next time.
Like no other in Metropolis, when the Man of Steel received an urgent call from the Green Lantern Corps. Sinestro was wreaking havoc off-world, and Superman was the only hope the Corps had. But before he could suit up and fly away as fast as a speeding bullet, his fiancée, the stunning Lois Lane, begged him not to go. "Please don't go so close to our wedding day," she pleaded with a hint of desperation in her trembling voice. "Lois, my love, I'll be back in no time. I'm Superman, remember?" He clasped her hands gently in his and gave her a reassuring smile. Her heart ached with fear and jealousy as she watched her beloved bid her goodbye. But before Superman could take to the skies, he mentioned that his trusted ally and friend, Wonder Woman, would be joining him for the mission. That mere mention of Wonder Woman lit a burning flame in Lois's heart. Her eyes narrowed with an intense determination as she watched the Amazonian princess land her stunning invisible jet. Little did Superman know, Lois was desperate to make him jealous. With the wind whipping her hair, Lois marched off in search of a plan for revenge. The very next day, Lois's devious plan began to take shape. She had a devilish glint in her eye as she muttered to herself. I'll find some hopeless loser, flirt with him shamelessly, take a few snaps, and post those pictures on Instagram. Poor Clark won't know what hit him. Suddenly, like a vision from the comic books, she saw him, a short and goofy-looking man, donned in garb that screamed Comic-Con enthusiast. His finger was void of a wedding band, making her scheme all the more viable. Her heart racing with impish excitement, Lois skipped towards the stranger and fluttered her eyelashes. Hey, handsome! Goku stood befuddled, unsure of how to respond. But Lois was on a roll. She flashed her pearly whites and returned, Hey, handsome! Unbeknownst to Goku's naive mind, he had been unwittingly ensnared by Lois's scheme. But before long, Chi-Chi, Goku's ever-vigilant wife, overheard the exchange and stormed over, suspicion coursing through her veins. Chi-Chi's voice rang out, stern and accusing. What do you think you're doing, flirting with my husband? Lois began to stammer, trying to explain that she didn't realize Goku was married. But before she could finish her sentence, Chi-Chi jumped into a fighting stance. Tension hung heavy in the air as both women eyed each other, poised and ready for battle. Chi-Chi was a fierce and highly skilled martial artist with a temper to match her might. But Lois was no pushover either. Her fiery spirit mirrored it in her combat skills. The two combatants began to circle each other, each waiting for the opening to deliver a knockout blow. Lois swung first, but Chi-Chi quickly paired the hit and counteracted with a devastating jab, followed by a vicious kick that sent Lois hurtling to the ground. At that moment, Lois knew she had made a grave mistake. Panic set in as she frantically tapped the button on her watch, usually reserved for summoning her beloved Superman. But much to her horror, she realized that Superman was far from reach. In the face of this immense danger, Lois's instincts kicked in. She gritted her teeth, pushing herself back into her feet. Her mind whirled as she weighed her options. Maybe I should apologize, but then again, that she-beast hit me first. All right, let's do this. Muscles tensed. The women circled once more. Chi-Chi went in for another punch, but Lois dodged and countered, unleashing a flurry of blows. Her confidence grew as she began to dance around with ease. In a flash, the tide of the fight turned. Chi-Chi, like a Saiyan warrior, rose to the challenge. She unleashed an onslaught of the most epic proportion, delivering some of the most ferocious blows ever traded between two mortals. Just as the lights were beginning to fade for Lois, the sound of tires screeching echoed in the distance. Without missing a beat, Batman arrived on the scene, leaping out of the Batmobile with unparalleled grace and agility. Lois had not signaled in vain, and soon Batman had inserted himself between Chi-Chi and her. With a quick nod, he signaled for Lois to retreat to the safety of the Batmobile. Meanwhile, Goku considered making a move, but upon realizing that Batman had no superhuman abilities, he stepped back, curious to see how this martial arts showdown would unfold. Whatever was going to happen next, it was sure to be an epic event. With Lois safely in the Batmobile, Batman stood resolutely before Chi-Chi, ready to defend his ally. She was no ordinary foe, though with a fighting prowess that far exceeded any he had ever encountered. The superhero and the warrior circled each other, calculating their next moves. Batman landed the first punch, but Chi-Chi nimbly weaved away, countering with a slap that sent Batman reeling. Determined to protect Lois, Batman gathered himself and launched into a series of devastating strikes. Chi-Chi responded with equal ferocity, a brutal fight, fast fists and fiery kicks. Their dance of combat continued, each landing painful blows on the other. Batman was skilled, but he was up against a woman whose warrior spirit matched his own. The two battled on, giving everything they had. In the end, it was Chi who emerged victorious, her final punch knocking Batman down to the ground. As she stood tall, triumphant, Batman disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving Goku to stand beside her with the air of a proud husband. Without a word, the two gladiators locked eyes in mutual respect.
The crowd cheered as Rainbow Dash and Krillin stepped onto the grand stage for the final battle of the martial arts tournament. The air was electric and everyone knew that they were about to witness something special. Both fighters had gone through a grueling gauntlet of highly skilled opponents to reach this point. The audience was thrilled to see such powerful contenders go head to head. Rainbow Dash and Krillin locked eyes and began to circle each other. Rainbow Dash was a proud and fierce Pegasus with a muscular build and confident attitude. Krillin, on the other hand, was a short but mighty warrior with an unbreakable determination in his eyes. "You think you can take me, little guy?" Rainbow Dash taunted. Krillin smirked. "Don't underestimate me. You may be fast, but I'm much more than just a mere human." As the bell rang, they both charged at each other with lightning speed. Rainbow Dash swooped down and went for a quick strike, but Krillin deftly dodged it and countered with an explosive energy blast from his palm. Rainbow Dash looked impressed but unfazed. "The first round goes to me, Rainbow Dash," Krillin declared. Rainbow Dash wasn't one to be deterred easily. She quickly got up and flew into the air, spinning and diving towards Krillin with incredible force. Krillin saw the attack coming and dodged once again, but not without difficulty. He knew he had to act fast. Without warning, Krillin unleashed a powerful solar flare, blinding Rainbow Dash and creating an opening for his devastating Kamehameha wave. Rainbow Dash could barely see what was coming, but by sheer luck, she managed to dodge the attack. The fight continued relentlessly, both fighters pushing each other to their limits. Rainbow Dash used her incredible speed and agility to dodge and weave around Krillin's lightning-fast attacks, while Krillin relied on his superior strength and energy blast to wear down Rainbow Dash. But the crowd knew there was something special about to happen. The fans had been watching Rainbow Dash in awe throughout the tournament, and they knew she was capable of pulling off something absolutely incredible. Suddenly, Rainbow Dash began to gather an immense amount of energy. She flew higher and higher into the air, leaving behind a rainbow trail of light. She let out a tremendous roar, and the crowd knew that this was the sonic rain boom they had been waiting for. Krillin was taken aback by the sudden burst of energy. He tried to shield himself, but it was too late. The sonic rain boom hit him with full force, sending him flying into the air and crashing down in a cloud of dust. The crowd went wild, cheering for Rainbow Dash's incredible feat. But as the dust cleared, they saw something extraordinary. Krillin was not out yet. He managed to get up, bruised and battered, but still standing. "You may have taken me by surprise, but I'm not ready to give up just yet," Krillin declared, his voice filled with determination and spirit. The audience watched in amazement as Krillin unleashed another devastating Kamehameha wave towards Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash, who was caught off guard, made an effort to dodge the attack, but it was too late. Krillin's attack hit her with full force, and Rainbow Dash was sent flying as the crowd watched in horror. The referee declared Krillin the winner, and the crowd erupted in applause. Even Rainbow Dash, who was defeated, couldn't help but feel impressed by Krillin's strength and determination. "That was one fun match. I guess I'll have to train harder next time," Rainbow Dash said. Krillin smirked. "You're a strong fighter, Rainbow Dash. I've learned a lot from fighting you." The two competitors shook hands and left the stage as the audience cheered for both of them. It was a match that will be remembered for years to come, and a testament to the incredible skill and strength of both fighters. Meanwhile, Pinkie Pie sat in the crowd, angry, waiting for an opportunity to seek revenge on Krillin for defeating her friend Rainbow Dash. Solar flare, I don't care. Dragon Ball, make a wish. End it with a destructo. Just may holla at your boy. Krillin with a K. Villains I will slay. 18, that's my babe. Get the heck out my way. You can call me Master K. My little pony now, my little phony. Hit you with the destructo. This could be the skills to your homie. Rainbow Dash, now Rainbow Crash. Turn you upside down and shoot the key blast at your fab. Solar flare, I don't care. Dragon Ball, make a wish. End it with a destructo.
some respect. You may not kiss the bride, thank God.
Say what I think you're gonna say.
That you can fly. Squeeze that made you cry. Did you even try? You better clear the room when I sonic rain boom. Look, little man, you don't stand a chance. In your little orange PJ pants, spare the drama and run home to your mama.
So the flare, I don't care. Dragon Ball, make a wish. Anything with a destructive wish.
Of course, married a bird, pooped out a rainbow. Thought it was cute, but it really ain't though. Put on some pants, cause cutie mark is kinda obscene if it's on your butt. It shouldn't be seen. Your whole team is really lame though. I'ma hit you with his key blast and let him taste the rainbow.
So the flare, I don't care. Dragon Ball, make a wish. End it with a destructive.
Pinkie Pie stood helplessly aghast as she beheld her dear friend Rainbow Dash take the full brunt of a vicious key blast. The sight of her closest ally falling lifelessly onto the ground, immobilized and helpless, was unbearable. As Pinkie Pie held her breath, overcome with apprehension and anxiety, all she could think about was the safety and well-being of her beloved friend. Please be okay, she silently prayed as she watched Rainbow Dash's limp body lying on the ground. But as soon as signs of life surfaced within her friend, Pinkie Pie's attention shifted from concern to intense fury. A storm of anger surged within her, an overpowering force that she had never experienced before. At that moment, she made a solemn vow to herself. She would avenge her friend and defeat the Z-Fighter Krillin, no matter what it cost. Weeks eventually passed, and Twilight Sparkle treaded into Equestria's biggest gym, slipping by a large burly pony who had been thrown from the ring. Twilight searched the area until she found her friend Pinkie Pie, breathing heavily and sporting a crazed look in her eyes. Concerned and fearful, she begged her friend to take it easy, warning her that someone would eventually get hurt. But Pinkie Pie quickly brushed aside her friend's concerns, her voice resonating with an unusually deep-toned fury. "Take it easy, my dear friend," she growled vehemently. "No way, not until I make that no-good, no-nose-having Krillin pay." Pinkie Pie, brimming with confidence from her rigorous training, eagerly yearned to put her newfound skills to the test. Buzzing with anticipation, she learned about an upcoming martial arts tournament that would attract formidable fighters. With nimble fingers, she swiftly powered up her computer, its soft glow casting an ethereal light on her face, illuminating her determined expression. As the screen flickered to life, Pinkie Pie's eyes danced with excitement, craving to discover the names of those who had thrown their hats into the ring. Her heart skipped a beat in anticipation, hoping beyond hope that her rival, the indomitable Z-Fighter Krillin, had chosen to join this prestigious gathering. Scrolling through the seamlessly endless list of names, she spotted familiar names like Mario, Luigi, Sonic, Bayonetta, and Wonder Woman, each one eliciting a mix of admiration and competitive fervor. But then, amidst the sea of renowned fighters, an unfamiliar name caught her attention. Yamcha? Furrowing her brows in confusion, she muttered a question under her breath. Yamcha? Who the heck is Yamcha? Determined to find her elusive nemesis, Pinkie Pie continued scrolling, growing increasingly exasperated with each passing second. As she delved deeper into the list, her frustration simmered beneath the surface like a contained wildfire, yearning to break free. The names Deku, Phineas, and Perry flashed before her eyes, teasing her hopes only to cruelly extinguish them. Her patience waned, her voice raised, and she couldn't help but exclaim in vexation, "Where in Equestria is Krillin?" Just as Pinkie Pie was on the brink of closing the digital gates in defeat, a melodious ding reverberated through the room, piercing the heavy silence. Her eyes widened with a renewed sense of purpose. She realized it was an alert for a new entry. With a flash of triumph in her eyes, she discovered that her long-awaited nemesis, Krillin, also known by his moniker, Master K, had finally made his appearance. Without a moment's hesitation, Pinkie Pie swiftly completed the registration form and dutifully paid the required fee. In that triumphant moment, an electric charge rippled through Pinkie Pie's being, for she knew that this tournament marked the long-awaited opportunity to avenge the loss suffered by her dear friend Rainbow Dash. After tirelessly pouring countless hours into her training regimen, the long-awaited day had finally dawned for Pinkie Pie. Butterflies danced in her stomach as she prepared to unleash her abilities upon the tournament, knowing all too well that the road to the finals would be riddled with formidable opponents. Glancing at her bracket, she couldn't help but let out a defeated groan that her path was so stacked like a tire of pancakes on a Sunday brunch. Her first challenge awaited her in the preliminary round, a face-off against none other than Yamcha. The fighter hailed from the same dojo as the ominous Krillin, the very nemesis Pinkie Pie was eager to vanquish. It was said that Kami House, where these fighters trained, possessed an air of mystique, but it quickly became apparent that their coach was anything but ordinary. A creepy old man with no front teeth, Master Roshi had taken on the responsibility of guiding these warriors. However, his interest seemed to lie less in martial arts and more in, well, let's just say his eyes often wandered when it came to eyeing the female fighters. As Pinkie Pie innocently glanced in his direction, curiosity etching across her face, Roshi couldn't resist calling out to her, "Hey, little filly, come meet old Roshi." The absurdity of all of it left Pinkie Pie feeling a mixture of disgust and hilarity, prompting her to turn her head and rapidly trot away from this uncomfortable encounter. Taking a deep breath and regaining her composure, Pinkie Pie reminded herself, one fight at a time. Determined to focus on the task at hand, she redirected her attention to unraveling the mystery of the rest of her bracket. But just as she began to delve into her planning, a sudden eruption of voices called out her name alongside that of her first round opponent. It was time for her debut battle, and she couldn't help but feel her heart leap with a mixture of excitement and nerves. As Pinkie Pie approached the arena, the atmosphere crackled with electric anticipation. The vibrant colors of the battlefield, swirling dust particles sparkling like pixie dust in the sunlight, beckoned her forward. With each step, her muscles tensed and her mind sharpened, ready to showcase the results of her rigorous training and bring glory to her loyal friend, Rainbow Dash. Armed with a spirit as unyielding as diamond armor and a determination as unwavering as a tidal wave, Pinkie Pie took her place, ready to engage in a battle that would test not only her physical prowess, but also her wit and strategizing skills. The arena fell into a hush, all eyes fixated on the imminent clash. The time had come for Pinkie Pie to prove that she was more than just a whimsical mare. She was a force to be reckoned with. With an air of determination, Pinkie Pie stepped onto the grand stage, her hooves hitting the sturdy floor like rhythmic thunder. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, their excitement filling the arena like a roaring tempest. Yamcha, having recently emerged victorious against the esteemed Super Mario, had become a sensation, casting a mesmerizing allure over the fighting community. On the ringside, seated gracefully, was his beloved fiancée, Princess Peach, her presence lending an air of regality to the event. Yamcha, now the darling of the spectators, was overwhelmingly favored to triumph. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, charged with the anticipation of witnessing an epic clash, yet Pinkie Pie remained undaunted. Refusing to be swayed by the pervasive bias of the crowd, she stood tall, emanating an indomitable spirit, transcending the dissenting murmurs. In this corner, boomed the announcer's voice, crackling with excitement. We have Pinkie Pie, hailing from the enchanting lands of Equestria, making her awe-inspiring debut in this hallowed ring. Trained relentlessly at the esteemed Ponyville MMA Academy and under the tutelage of the brilliant Twilight Sparkle, the spotlight shifted to the opposing corner, illuminating a figure emanating an aura of hometown pride. And in this corner, the announcer proclaimed, trained diligently at the revered Kami House under the legendary Master Roshi's guidance, our beloved local hero, Yamcha. As the words settled in the air, attention akin to a coiled spring gripped the arena. The spectators held their breath, eagerly awaiting the clash of these formidable warriors. The announcer's voice reverberated again, commanding the fighters to touch gloves, a symbolic gesture of sportsmanship before the battle. And now he declared, let the rumble commence. Without warning, Yamcha launched into attack, a lightning-fast kick roaring through the air. But Pinkie Pie's agility was as swift as the wind, and with an acrobatic dodge, she evaded his attack. In a seamless display of skill, she swiftly countered, delivering a powerful back kick that landed squarely on Yamcha's chest, propelling him backward out of the ring. Gasps of astonishment rippled through the crowd, their collective awe almost tangible in the electrified atmosphere. Unleashing a wild grin, Pinkie Pie planted herself defiantly in the center of the ring, taunting her fallen opponent. Her voice carried with a hint of madness, gleefully whispering, yeah, Bring me that little bald-headed troll, Krillin. And you, Roshi, you're just gross, man. The audience erupted. A mix of astonishment, excitement, and perhaps a hint of admiration for the unyielding spirit of the colorful newcomer who had defied all expectations. The battle was far from over, and Pinkie Pie had proven she was a force to be reckoned with, casting a swirling aura of unpredictability over the grand stage. Round 1 was over. Next, she would face the Dark Knight himself, Batman. Meanwhile, Krillin was struggling on the other side of the bracket. He was locked in an intense battle with Katsuki Bakugo, an up-and-coming star from a prestigious hero academy, who was extremely talented, but fortunately for Krillin, he was inexperienced. Krillin, realizing his ki blast may have overly destructive effect on the arena and onlookers, had to rely on hand-to-hand combat. The young and volatile Bakugo did not seem to care about collateral damage. He fired explosive sweat blasts with no regard for bystanders. Krillin dodged as much as he could, but was forced to absorb a full-force blast to protect the princess, who was distracted watching Yamcha, her beloved, get owned by a pink pony. The blast stunned Krillin, but angered him even more. He landed a blow on Bakugo's stomach that incapacitated the team hero in training. Krillin won the battle and advanced to the next round. Batman, the brooding Dark Knight himself, had hit a bit of a rough patch. This crime-fighting maestro had taken down formidable supervillains like Solomon Grundy, Bane, and Poison Ivy, but to his utter disbelief, he found himself getting pummeled by none other than an ordinary housewife. Yes, you read that right. A regular, everyday lady named Chi had managed to give Batman a run for his money. He scratched his cowl-covered head and wondered, who is this mysterious Chi and how on earth did she fight so well? Deciding that he needed to up his game, Batman made a life-changing decision. He resolved to enter the World Martial Arts Tournament, a no-holds-barred extravaganza that reached across dimensions and multiverses. It was a wild competition filled with the most bizarre and ferocious fighters out there. The Caped Crusader sailed through his first round without breaking a sweat, easily defeating the star-spangled symbol of freedom himself, Captain America. With newfound confidence, he geared up to face his second opponent, none other than Pinkie Pie. Batman had discovered that Pinkie Pie had soundly defeated a warrior from the same universe as the she-beast Chi, the one who had given Batman a trouncing while he tried to protect Lois Lane. As the clock ticked closer to the showdown with Pinkie Pie, Batman considered the consequences of unmasking his love for Lois Lane. He could sense the smoldering embers of affection flickering back at him, but he knew that if he provoked the fury of her fiancé Superman, it could bring about doom for their entire planet. So he wiped thoughts of romance from his mind, focusing solely on the task at hand, a showdown with Pinkie Pie, the wonder from Equestria. Lois decided she would tag along and watch the competition. The Dark Knight and the Pink Pony squared up, ready to do battle. With a thunderous voice, the announcer bellowed, "Let's get ready to rumble." With that, the two warriors came out swinging. Batman, the master strategist, had scouted Pinkie Pie's earlier bout and knew about the strength of her hind legs. So he used his nearly superhuman speed and agility to stay in front of her, landing violent punches and kicks. Pinkie Pie could not keep up. Batman landed a vicious kick that knocked Pinkie Pie to the ground. She laid there for a moment, beaten and badly bruised. Confident that he had ended the match, he turned to see if he could spot his beloved Lois. As he turned his head, he heard a disturbing giggle. The arena fell into an eerie hush. All that could be heard was this maniacal giggle. Batman quickly turned around, and to his surprise, Pinkie Pie was no longer in sight. He looked to the left and to the right and could not find her. Suddenly, he heard Lois scream in the distance, "It's behind you!" Just as Batman turned around, he was smacked in the face with a whipped cream pie. Pinkie Pie surprisingly possessed the uncanny cartoon-like ability to pull objects out of thin air. She produced a pie out of nowhere and creamed the Dark Knight. As the Caped Crusader tried to clear his face, Pinkie Pie loaded herself into a cartoon cannon. Batman, finally able to see, realized he had made a grave miscalculation, but it was too late. Pinkie Pie launched herself at Batman, knocking him out of the ring and winning the bout. "For Equestria!" she shouted as she was declared the victor. Vegeta's mind has been in turmoil for the past 2 weeks. His beloved wife Bulma has recently started acting strange and evasive. Her usually candid behavior had dissipated, leaving Vegeta with a sickening intuition that something was not right. All passwords were based on their children's birthdays, which they've always shared between them. Vegeta was confident that nothing would be concealed from him. Yet he was dumbfounded when he discovered that Bulma had created a clandestine Instagram account under the moniker Hot Mama Bully B. The account had no posts, raising Vegeta's suspicion. Why would Bulma, a prolific poster, create an account without sharing any content? His emotions were manically fluctuating between rage and sadness. Still, Vegeta attempted to suppress his qualms and convince himself that his wife's Instagram account was harmless. However, his intuition forbade him from ignoring the warning signs. With trembling fingers, Vegeta gathered the courage to check the Instagram messages, and his worst fears manifested. His heart shattered as he uncovered a dozen messages between his wife and another man who called himself the Professor. Vegeta was skeptical and suspicious as he read through the messages between his wife and some mysterious professor. Though not overtly incriminating, they were enough to set Vegeta on edge and begin a covert investigation. With growing apprehension, he read the last message that sealed his fears. "Does your husband know what's going on?" the professor asked Bulma. Bulma replied, "No, he is clueless, as usual." "Perfect. 10 o'clock tomorrow. See you then." Vegeta's heart raced as the idea of his wife being involved in some secret activity with another man consumed him. Though it was possible that the pair were working on something harmless and science-related, he had to be sure. Thus he decided to follow his wife to the rendezvous point, hoping that his fears would remain unfounded, yet bracing himself for the worst. Vegeta was determined to get to the bottom of things and began following his wife's car, hovering high above her to avoid detection. As they reached a quiet suburb, the car came to a stop outside a residential property. Bulma disembarked from the car, and as the door to the house opened, out popped the mysterious professor from the messages. Vegeta had initially planned to bide his time and gather more information before taking any action. However, as he saw the professor embrace Bulma and watched her give him a peck on the cheek, the Saiyan Prince was consumed with rage. "Not my Bulma," he howled as he flew down with lightning speed to confront the man. Bulma heard her husband's furious outburst ringing from up above and called out, "Honey, it's not what you think." Unfortunately, her voice was drowned out by Vegeta's rage and seething anger. As he entered the professor's laboratory, he shouted out, "You're a dead man," with enough force to awaken the professor's children. Suddenly, a brightly colored blur knocked Vegeta from his feet. He quickly regained his footing, realizing he had awakened the professor's protectors. The Powerpuff Girls, Bubbles, Blossom, and Buttercup were ready to do battle with the Saiyan warrior who had dared to threaten the beloved professor.
Suddenly, a brightly colored blur knocked Vegeta from his feet. He quickly regained his footing, realizing he had awakened the professor's protectors, the Powerpuff Girls. Bubbles, Blossom, and Buttercup were ready to do battle. The enraged Vegeta ignored the professor's attempts to explain. The battle was about to begin. Vegeta could no longer contain his fury as he was confronted by the Powerpuff Girls and their mentor, the professor. With a fierce look in his eyes, he unleashed a devastating ki blast aimed straight at Blossom, sending her flying back, her petite frame no match for the sheer force of his attack. "I have no desire to fight a bunch of pint-sized brats," Vegeta roared, a sneer spreading across his face as he turned his attention back to the girls. But as soon as he finished his sentence, Buttercup and Bubbles sprang into action, their movements so swift that they appeared as mere blurs in the air. With sheer precision, they swept his legs out from under him, turning him head over heels. A sharp thud echoed through the air as his head landed on the ground, but Vegeta wasted no time, leaping back to his feet and engaging in a frenzied exchange of lightning-fast blows with the girls. As the battle raged on, Vegeta began to realize that his opponents were not to be underestimated. How can this be, he thought, his thoughts racing as he struggled to keep up with their movements. These toddlers are too much for my base form. I'll have to take it to Super Saiyan. With a resounding yell, Vegeta's energy began to surge, his entire body flickering as he transformed into his Super Saiyan form. Blossom nearly smirked In response, her confidence unshaken. "It's about time," she remarked, with a hint of amusement. We were getting bored. The intensity of the battle continued to escalate until the professor finally sensed that it was about to spiral out of control. With a swift motion, he activated the portal, whisking the combatants away to a pocket dimension where they could unleash their full power without causing collateral damage. But the fighters were so engrossed in their battle, so consumed by their desire to defeat their opponent, that they were completely oblivious to the transition. Vegeta began to rapidly fire a ki blast in the direction of the pint-sized Powerpuff Girls. The girls moved with lightning-fast reflexes, effortlessly dodging each attack. They laughed and giggled as if they were simply having the time of their lives. In a fit of violent rage, Vegeta managed to land a devastating punch on Buttercup's tiny frame. Blossom and Bubbles quickly retaliated, attacking with a viciousness that the Saiyan Prince had never before experienced. As they unleashed a flurry of blows on him, Buttercup regained her composure and flew at lightning speed towards Vegeta, ramming her head into his abdomen. The force of the blow was enough to bring the Saiyan Prince to his knees in agony. "Had enough, old man?" Blossom asked, her voice cool and collected. Stunned with the pain, Vegeta was unable to respond immediately. But before he could even gather his senses, but cut in with a taunt of her own. "I guess so," she snickered, turning to walk away with her sisters. But then, a spark of blue light caught the girl's attention, followed by the sound of Vegeta's voice. "Not so fast," he growled, the veins on his forehead bulging with fury. Vegeta had now accessed the power of Super Saiyan Blue, and the intensity of the battle suddenly increased tenfold. Seemingly invincible, he threw the girls around like mere rag dolls, overpowering them with ease. But just as he was about to deliver a finishing blow, looked up at him with pleading eyes and uttered a heart-wrenched plea. "Please don't hurt us, mister," she whimpered. "We're just kids." Vegeta was suddenly hit with a wave of compassion, his thoughts turning towards his own children. Ashamed of his earlier behavior, he said with a solemn tone, "I won't hurt you, little ones." He turned to leave, intent on ending the battle. But before he could even take a step, he felt a sudden surge of violent energy explode within his vicinity. The combined eye laser of the Powerpuff Girls was enough to badly injure Vegeta. His defenses totally down in that fraction of a second. Vegeta lay on the ground, writhing in pain from the blast. Satisfied that they had won the battle, the Powerpuff Girls began to celebrate with their victory. Little did they know the battle was far from over. A strange spark had been ignited within Vegeta. His ultra ego had been awakened. Fueled by the pain of betrayal he felt from his beloved Bulma. The professor and Bulma, who had been monitoring the battle and gathering data, soon discovered something both extraordinary and terrifying. "We have to end this," the professor cried out, his voice laced with urgency. "He's too powerful in this new form. He'll destroy my girls." Bulma quickly took heed of his warning and traveled through a portal to the battlefield where her enraged husband stood, ready to unleash his power at any moment. As the Powerpuff Girls huddled together in terror, Vegeta prepared a finishing ki blast. But just as he was about to unleash it, Bulma stood between him and the trembling girls, her own expression one of defiance. Despite his disbelief that she had betrayed him, Vegeta could never raise a hand against his beloved wife. With a heavy heart, he powered down his attack and finally spoke out. "Bulma, why?" he demanded, his voice shaking with emotion. Bulma's response was, "I don't know what you think is going on, but you're ruining your own birthday surprise. This was supposed to be a new training area for you. The professor was helping me work on increasing the gravity and such. What did you think was going on?" As Vegeta slowly powered down to his base form, he felt a pang of regret for doubting the woman he loved. Tears now streaming down his face, he turned towards the terrified Powerpuff Girls and apologized profusely. "Bulma,
Can you find it in your heart to forgive me?" he implored, his voice quivering with genuine remorse. "I should have never doubted you." Despite her initial anger at the notion that her husband had believed her to be unfaithful, Bulma couldn't help but feel pity for the mighty Saiyan warrior before her, now moved to tears. In the end, she simply placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Of course, Vegeta, I forgive you."